Some people say there's truth in every joke, but what they don't tell you is how deeply a joke can cut when the truth behind it is soaked in resentment. My wife, Lindsay, always thought she was the funny one in the room. Sarcasm was her love language, or so she claimed. But there's a line, an invisible one, and once you cross it, no amount of laughter can bring you back. She didn't just cross it. She bulldozed it. And by the time she realized what she'd done, there was no one left clapping. We'd been married 8 years. Long enough for people to start calling us solid. Long enough to collect routines instead of adventures. But not so long that we couldn't have turned it around, if we wanted to. Lindsay was quick-witted, the kind of woman who could turn any awkward silence into a punchline. People loved her for it. At parties, in work meetings, at family gatherings, she was the spark. And for a while, I did too. It felt electric being with someone who never took life too seriously. It made me feel lighter. Until it didn't. See, there's a difference between lightness and cruelty dressed up with a laugh track. And over the years, Lindsay started confusing the two. It started small, harmless digs in front of friends. Oh, you know Ben, he couldn't fix a light bulb without YouTube. Everyone would chuckle, including me. But after a while, it wasn't just jokes. It was exposure. Little humiliations told with a smile. And people laughed, sure, but not because they were entertained. They laughed because they didn't want to be her next punchline. I started to flinch when she opened her mouth. That's how you know it's not funny anymore. But I never said anything. Not really. I'd bring it up in soft, careful tones. Tell her she'd gone too far. She'd always brush it off. You're too sensitive. God, it's a joke, Ben. Everyone knows I love you. That last one always got me. Like saying, I love you, gave her a free pass to make me the clown at every table. Still, I stayed. I told myself it was her way. That she didn't mean anything by it. That maybe I was just being too serious. Then came her office's annual winter gala. A big to-do, black tie, open bar, name tags with job titles and everything. She was up for a promotion, so this was the night to shine. We walked in together, hand in hand. She looked stunning, deep red dress, hair curled just the way she liked it, heels that made her tower just a bit. She leaned into me and said, "Let's have fun tonight." I nodded. I wanted to believe her. The night started fine. We mingled. She introduced me to her boss, her coworkers. I shook hands, smiled, listened to everyone talk about spreadsheets and branding strategies like they were discussing national policy. You know, the usual. Then came the moment that changed everything. There was this fun segment, a kind of informal roast for the team. They called it the spotlight round. One person was picked at random to be playfully teased. But Lindsay volunteered. Of course she did. She took the mic with a smirk. Everyone cheered, "Lindsay's got this." And yeah, she had it. That room was hers. She started light, jokes about office coffee, someone's spreadsheet obsession, the guy who always sneezed too loud. Then she turned to me. And I swear to you, something shifted in her eyes. Like she saw an opportunity, not to tease, but to prove something. She joked about how I'd been laid off 6 months earlier. How I spent most of my day in pajamas trying to become a podcast expert. She called me her house husband in training, and joked that I made a mean bowl of cereal. Everyone laughed. Except me. She wasn't done. She said if anyone needed a professional Netflix recommender, Ben's your guy. She even threw in a line about how I used to have ambition, once. But now I was just her +1 with potential. That one stung. And when the laughter died down, she added with a shrug, "Hey, I married for love." I didn't know I'd have to support it too. That was it. The moment. The line she couldn't walk back. The applause hadn't even fully died down when I stood up and walked out. Not stormed. Not slammed a chair. Just walked. Calmly. Quietly. And you know what? That scared her more than any scene would've. Because Lindsay didn't expect silence. She expected embarrassment, maybe a sarcastic retort. A jab for a jab. That's how we'd always played it, right? She hit, I swallowed it. But not this time. Outside, the cold air hit me like a truth I'd been avoiding. I stood on the curb under the buzzing streetlight, phone in hand, debating whether to call a ride or just start walking. Then I saw her coming. Heels clicking. Dress swaying. That look on her face like she was trying to decide whether to laugh it off or apologize. She settled somewhere in between. Ben, come on, it was just a joke. There it was again. That phrase. The shield. The cop-out. I didn't say a word. Just opened the passenger door and got in. We drove home in silence. Not the tense kind, not angry or wounded. It was heavier than that. This was the kind of silence where love used to live, and now there was just vacancy. About halfway home, she tried again. You're really mad. Still nothing from me. She sighed, more annoyed than remorseful. You know I didn't mean it. Everyone was laughing. And I finally said it. Quiet. Calm. Measured. I wasn't. That shut her up. We got home, and I didn't wait for the rest. No argument. No dramatic exit. I just went into the guest room and closed the door behind me. She didn't follow. That was a Tuesday night. By Friday, we still hadn't spoken beyond the basics. Do you want coffee? Your package came. I'm heading out. But something changed in the air between us. It wasn't just that I was hurt. It was that I was done pretending her behavior didn't leave marks. You see, I realized something that week. It wasn't just that night that broke us. That was just the punchline. The real damage came from years of setup, little jabs, quiet humiliations, chuckles at my expense while I kept telling myself she didn't mean it. But maybe she did. Or maybe she just didn't care that it hurt me. And that's even worse. That weekend we had a dinner planned with some friends. Lindsay assumed we'd still go. She wore this blue dress I used to love, came down the stairs with her usual confidence. Looked at me like nothing had happened. You ready? I looked up from my book and told her I wasn't going. She blinked. What? I'm not going. Ben, they're expecting both of us. I shrugged. Let them expect what they want. She stared at me, unsure if she should be angry or scared. I could see it, the beginning of understanding. That I wasn't playing the part anymore. That I wasn't going to sit there and smile while she took swings at me with a wink and a joke. She went without me. Texted once during dinner, "Miss you," with a heart emoji. I didn't reply. Because I knew that wasn't love. That was damage control. The next few weeks were a slow, quiet crumbling. She tried to be nice. Offered to cook. Suggested a weekend away. Said things like, "Let's get back to us." But every time she said us, I wondered which version she meant. The one where I let her wear me down and call it affection. Or the one where I finally stood up and said, "That's enough." And here's the twist no one expects in stories like this: I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even sad. I felt, still. Like a man who'd been holding his breath for years and finally exhaled. Because when you spend a lifetime being the butt of the joke, the moment you stop laughing along, it changes everything. The thing about being the funny one is that your whole identity starts to depend on it. It's not just a personality trait, it's a currency. And Lindsay? She'd spent years cashing in. Until suddenly, no one was buying. After that gala night, things shifted. Not just between us, but around her. Subtle at first. Her co-workers, who once howled at her wit, started tightening up when she entered a room. The boss she tried so hard to impress stopped pulling her into side conversations. People were polite. Smiles still happened. But the energy? It changed. Less open. Less impressed. I didn't gloat. That's not who I am. But I noticed. She came home one day after work, tossed her keys a little harder than usual, and said the mood at the office was weird. She blamed it on holiday stress. Said people were uptight. But I could tell it was bothering her. The sparkle in her voice, the one that lit up when she had everyone's attention, had dimmed. She didn't tell me the full story, of course. But I'd later hear through mutual friends that someone from HR had pulled her aside. Told her that a few people had raised concerns about targeted humor. That while her jokes were clever, they sometimes made others feel singled out, especially the way she spoke about her husband. And just like that, the joke was no longer charming. It was cautionary. Around that time, we went to a small dinner at my sister's house. Just family. Comfortable, warm, safe. Or so it should have been. Normally, Lindsay held court, glass of wine in hand, tossing zingers across the table like confetti. But that night, she was quiet. Every time she opened her mouth to joke, I could see her hesitate. Like she was waiting to see if the room would laugh before she even finished the sentence. And when the laughs didn't come easy, she got smaller. Halfway through dinner, my sister asked me how work was going. I mentioned I'd picked up some freelance clients. Small projects. Design work here and there. Lindsay perked up and tried to cut in with a chuckle, said something like, "Guess I won't have to feed this man-child forever." Dead silence. Not even a smirk. My sister looked at her. Then looked at me. And just said, "Ben's doing great. We're proud of him." That shut her down completely. After dinner, as we drove home, Lindsay sat in the passenger seat like a storm building behind a calm sky. "I guess I'm not allowed to be funny anymore," she said bitterly. I kept my hands on the wheel and answered without looking at her. "You were never not allowed. You just never noticed who it was costing." That was the first time I saw her genuinely shaken. She didn't argue. Didn't defend herself. Just stared out the window like she was trying to figure out who she'd become. And maybe she was. Because the truth is, when you build your self-worth on applause, losing it feels like losing your reflection. Like breaking a mirror and trying to recognize yourself in the shards. The next few weeks, she tried to change. Started watching her words more. Paid compliments instead of barbs. Said, "Thank you," more often. Asked if I wanted to talk. She even apologized. A real one, not coated in sarcasm or softened with a smile. "I didn't realize how much I used you as a prop," she said one night. "It's like you were part of my routine." That part stung. But at least it was honest. I told her I appreciated the apology. And I meant it. But an apology doesn't reset the clock. It doesn't erase the echoes of all the dinners, all the digs, all the laughs I had to fake so she could feel clever. She asked if I was ever going to forgive her. I told her I already had. But I also told her something she didn't expect. "I'm not sure I want to keep being with someone who only sees me clearly when I'm walking away." She didn't reply. Just nodded. And I think, in that moment, she realized it wasn't just about a joke anymore. It was about the foundation underneath it. The part where love's supposed to live. And how she'd chipped away at it for years, one punchline at a time. There's a difference between changing and trying to change. One is rooted in self-awareness, the kind that makes you uncomfortable in your own skin for a while. The other, well, the other is performance. A new script. Same actor. And Lindsay, bless her heart, was still stuck between the two. After that night in the car, she started trying harder. I could see it. She bought my favorite snacks again. Left little notes by the coffee maker. Offered to rub my shoulders when she noticed me hunched over the laptop. To the outside world, it might have looked like reconciliation. But for me, it felt more like rehearsal. She still hadn't learned the difference between doing something nice and being someone kind. Because kindness, real kindness, doesn't need to be acknowledged. It's quiet. Steady. Like water wearing down stone. She started seeing a therapist, which I respected. I didn't ask her to. She said it was time she took a real look at herself. I thought, finally, maybe this is it. Maybe she's digging deeper. One night, she came home holding a manila folder. Said it was from her therapist, some kind of exercise. Letter writing, she told me. To the person I hurt the most. I nodded. Waited for her to hand it to me. She didn't. She read it aloud. It was full of admissions. Regret. Memories. She told the story of how her joke started when she was a kid, how being the funny one made people like her, made them stay. How she learned early that making someone else the punchline was easier than being the vulnerable one. And she said something I'll never forget. I was afraid that if I let people see my soft parts, they'd walk away. So I made sure to bruise theirs first. It was raw. Honest. Probably the most honest she'd ever been with me. When she finished, she looked at me like she'd just handed me her heart on a paper plate and didn't know what I'd do with it. And I'll be straight with you, I wanted to forgive her. Part of me did forgive her, in that moment. But forgiveness is not the same as rebuilding. Not when the foundation's been eroded for years. We started spending more time together after that. Dinner at the table. Real conversation. Even a weekend trip, just the two of us, to a cabin we used to visit in the early years. There were moments when I caught glimpses of the woman I fell in love with, the warmth behind her eyes, the way her laugh used to sound when it wasn't aimed at someone's expense. But every time I let myself relax, there'd be a flicker of doubt. A ghost of her former self, just beneath the surface. One afternoon, she got a text from a mutual friend, someone who'd been at the gala. She showed it to me, proud. It read, "Heard you've really turned a corner. That's great. Took guts to admit you went too far." Lindsay smiled. See? People notice. I'm doing the work. And I realized, right then, that part of her still cared more about being seen doing the work than actually doing it. I asked her gently, "Are you changing for me, or for the people watching?" She didn't answer right away. Just stared at her phone like it had betrayed her. Then she whispered, "I don't know yet." And that was the most truthful thing she could have said. Because the truth is, you don't unlearn a decade of behavior overnight. You don't rebuild trust with flowers and apologies. You rebuild it brick by brick. With silence. With consistency. With humility. But here's the problem with Lindsay, she needed the world to clap every time she laid a brick. And I was tired of performing in her audience. If you really want to know someone, really know them, watch how they act around people they can't impress. My mother's not flashy. Not easily charmed. She's quiet, observant, and polite in that way Southern women are when they're biting their tongue. You'd never know what she was thinking, until you did. And then, you couldn't unhear it. She'd always been cordial with Lindsay. Civil, supportive, even. But distant. I never knew how much of that was intuition or caution. Now I think it was both. We were invited to my cousin Rachel's baby shower, small backyard thing, potluck, pastel balloons, folding chairs that tip over if you breathe wrong. My mother was hosting. Lindsay was nervous, though she tried to hide it under a layer of lipstick and compliments. On the drive there, she asked if I thought people still talked about the gala. I told her honestly, Probably not. People forget the details. But they remember how you made them feel. She didn't say anything after that. When we arrived, the greetings were warm, easy. Family always is, at least at first. But there was a chill underneath the smiles when Lindsay walked in. Nothing said outright. Just a pause in the conversation. A slight stiffness in a hug. And I could see it, the thing she feared most. She was no longer the favorite. Now, Lindsay had two choices in moments like this. She could double down, start cracking jokes, forcing smiles, trying to win the room back. Or she could lean in. Be real. Be humble. She tried to do both. During the gift opening, someone joked about the baby clothes being cuter than grown-up outfits. Lindsay jumped in with a laugh and said, "Ben still wears sweatpants from college. I keep telling him his fashion sense peaked in 2008. No one laughed. Not even a chuckle. My mother, standing nearby, gave her a long look. Then, in that soft but cutting tone only she could deliver, she said, "Well, good thing Ben's not dressing for anyone's approval. He's a grown man, not a punchline." It was quiet for a beat. And then people moved on like nothing happened. But Lindsay? She stood there frozen, wine glass half raised, blinking like she'd just been slapped with a truth she couldn't dodge. Later, after the party, we helped pack up. My mom and I were in the kitchen folding tablecloths. Lindsay came in, offered to help. My mom smiled and told her no thank you, they had it covered. Then she turned to me and said, "Walk me to the car, sweetheart." Outside, with the sun dipping low and the wind tugging at the trees, she looked me square in the eye and asked a question I hadn't even dared to say out loud. "Are you staying because she's changed, or because it's easier than starting over?" I didn't answer right away. I felt like a kid again, caught in something I couldn't lie about. She patted my arm. "You don't owe anyone your silence, Ben. Not even her." That night, after we got home, Lindsay came into the bedroom with puffy eyes and said she felt humiliated. That my mother sideswiped her. I asked her what hurt more, that my mom didn't laugh, or that no one defended her. She didn't answer. She just sat at the edge of the bed and stared down at her hands like they belonged to someone else. And that's when it hit me, she wasn't sorry for the things she'd done. She was sorry for how alone she felt now that the room wasn't laughing with her. You know, people talk about falling out of love like it's some dramatic event, like a slam or a scream. But for me, it was a whisper. A quiet knowing. That the woman sitting across from me was still reaching for the spotlight, and I was tired of standing in her shadow. 2 weeks after the baby shower, I packed a bag. Not out of spite. Not out of rage. Just quiet resolve. A kind of peace that only shows up when you stop trying to convince someone to treat you gently. I'd been sleeping in the guest room for nearly a month by then. That door had become more than a door, it was a symbol. Of separation. Of stillness. Of silence that, this time, I had chosen. Lindsay noticed, of course. How could she not? She started waking up early again. Making real breakfast. Asking if I wanted to walk the dog together. She even dusted off her old sketchbook, said she wanted to reconnect with the parts of herself that didn't need applause to matter. And I believed her. To a point. But that's the thing about broken trust. It doesn't crumble all at once. It decays, from the inside out. You keep pouring effort into it until you realize it's not growing anymore. You're just watering dust. The night I told her I was leaving, I didn't make a speech. I just sat her down at the kitchen table, the same one where she'd cracked 100 jokes about me over the years, and said, as calmly as I could, "I love who we were. But I don't like who I've become trying to hold on to it." She blinked like she didn't understand the words at first. Then she said, "You're really leaving?" I nodded. "But I've changed." "I know," I said. but I don't know if I can. Her face collapsed. All the polish, the poise, the wit, gone. Just a woman finally realizing that some things don't get undone. She reached for my hand. Said she'd fight harder. That she could prove it. That we'd be okay. I let her hold it for a minute. Let her cry. Let her feel everything I'd felt for years and just swallowed. Then I stood up. I spent too long being the one you learned from. Now I need to be the one who leaves. I didn't slam the door. Didn't throw one last look over my shoulder. I just walked out. Just like I had the night of the gala. Only this time. I didn't come back. A few months later, I ran into one of her coworkers at a local bookstore. The guy who used to sit next to her at work lunches and laugh the loudest. He didn't ask where Lindsay was. Instead, he said, "You look lighter." I smiled and thanked him. Then he paused and added, almost like a confession, "She was funny, you know. Until she wasn't." That stuck with me. Because that was the core of it, really. She never realized the joke stopped being funny the moment it stopped coming from a place of love. Humor without tenderness. That's just cruelty dressed in a clown suit. And here's the truth I carry now. It wasn't one joke that cost her everything. It was every single one she never thought would matter. Every little laugh she took at my expense. Every moment she chose the room over the relationship. She lost me before she realized I was something worth keeping.